Part 6, Chapter 4, Nations in Exile. The business of banishment was immeasurably improved and speeded up when they drove the first special settlers into exile. In the year of the Great Break, they designated the de-kulakized as special settlers, and this made for much greater flexibility and efficiency. It left no grounds for appeal, since it was not only kulaks who were de-kulakized. Call them special settlers, and no one can wriggle free. Then the Great Father gave orders that this word be applied to banished nations. Even he was slow to realize the value of his discovery. His first experiment was very cautious. In 1937, some tens of thousands of those suspicious Koreans were swiftly and quietly transferred from Far East to Kazakhstan. So swiftly that they spent the first winter in mud brick houses without windows. Where would all that glass have come from? And so quietly that nobody except the neighboring Kazakhs learned of this resettlement. No one who counted let slip a word about it. No foreign correspondent uttered a squeak. He liked it. He remembered it. And in 1940 the same method was applied on the outskirts of Leningrad, cradle of the revolution. But this time the banished were not taken at night and at bayonet point. Instead it was called a triumphal send-off to the newly conquered Karelo-Finnish Republic. At high noon, with red flags flapping and brass bands braying, the Leningrad Finns and Estonians were dispatched to settle their new native soil. These were mere trial runs. Only in July 1941 did the time come to test the method at full power. The autonomous and, of course, traitorous Republic of the Volga Germans, with its twin capitals, Engels and Marxstadt, had to be expunged and its population hurled somewhere well to the east in a matter of days. Here, for the first time, the dynamic method of exiling whole peoples was applied in its purity, and how much easier, how much more rewarding it proved to use a single criterion, that of nationality, rather than all those individual interrogations and decrees each naming a single person. As for the Germans seized in other parts of Russia, and every last one was gathered in, local NKVD officers had no need of higher education to determine whether a man was an enemy or not. If the name's German, grab him. The system had been proved and perfected, and henceforward would fasten its pitiless talons on any nation pointed out to it, designated and doomed as treacherous, and more adroitly every time. The Chechens, the Ingush, the Karachay, the Balkars, the Kalmyks, the Kurds, the Crimean Tatars, and finally the Caucasian Greeks. What made the system particularly effective was that the decision taken by the father of the peoples was made known to a particular people not in the form of verbose legal proceedings, but by means of a military operation carried out by modern motorized infantry. Armed divisions enter the doomed people's locality by night and occupy key positions. The criminal nation wakes up and sees every settlement ringed with machine guns and automatic rifles, and they are given 12 hours to get ready whatever each of them can carry in his hands. Then each of them is made to sit cross-legged in the back of a lorry like a prisoner. Old women, mothers with babies at the breast, sit down, all of you, you heard the order. And the lorries travel under escort to the railway station. From there, prison trains take them to a new place. Neatness and uniformity. That is the advantage of exiling whole nations at once. No special cases, no exceptions, no individual protests. They all go quietly, because they're all in it together. All ages and both sexes go, and that leaves something to be said. Those still in the womb go too, and are exiled unborn by the same decree. Yes, children not yet conceived go into exile, for it is their lot to be conceived under the high hand of the same decree, and from the very day of their birth, whatever that obsolete and tiresome Article 35 of the Criminal Code may say, sentence of exile cannot be passed on persons under 16 years of age. From the moment they thrust their heads out into the light, they will be special settlers, exiles in perpetuity. Their coming of age, their 16th birthdays, will be marked only by the first of their regular outings to report at the NKVD post. All that the exiles have left behind them, their houses, wide opened and still warm, their belongings lying in disorder, the homes put together and improved by 10 or even 20 generations, passed without differentiation to the agents of the punitive organs, then some more of it to the state, some to neighbors belonging to more fortunate nations, and nobody will write to complain about the loss of a cow, a piece of furniture, or some crockery. The only crack in the principle of uniformity was made by mixed marriages. Not for nothing has our socialist state always been against them. When the Germans, and later the Greeks, were exiled, spouses belonging to other nationalities were not sent with them, but this caused a great deal of confusion, and left the foci of infection in places supposedly sterilized, like those old Greek women who came home to their children to die. Where were the exiled nations sent? Kazakhstan was much favored, and there, together with the ordinary exiles, they formed more than half the republic's population, so that it could aptly be called Kazakhstan. But Central Asia, Siberia, where very many Kalmyks perished along the Yenisei, the northern Urals, and the northern European areas of the USSR all received their fair share.